Hey everyone, welcome to Space Engineers and welcome to the testing ground. This is where I will be examining just different questions that come up in how the game is played and in how you build your grids. And today what I want to look at specifically is thruster damage. Now, it's not so much that thrusters do damage. It's not about the, where thrusters do damage, how fast thrusters do damage. What I'm actually want to look at, one thing specifically, is the damage range. So let me show you what I mean. So if you're using build info, the mod build info, it has some really awesome features, and one of those is that if you get within range of a grid and you have your kind of like build box open here, so you can see I've got that white box around there, and I've got the on the right hand side of the screen, it tells me exactly with the components that are in the thruster and whatnot. If I'm in range of that torch, so if I back up, you can see I'm not in range. I move forward, I am in range. So if I'm in this kind of welding, grinding distance here, what I can do is I can hold down my control key and hit the equals plus sign, and what that will do is put in this air tightness mode here, and we can actually cycle through a few of them. So if I hit it again, you can see it's now mount points, so it shows me where the mount points are of a particular grid. If I hit it again, it tells me where the ports are, so in this case the port is to the rear, so it's telling me where those are. If I look at the curved tube, you can see where the ports are. And if I hit it for a third time, it turns it off. So it's these overlays. Now, if I hit it again here for the first time, we get the air tightness and specialized. And one of those specialized things is this cone damage. Now, a little bit of a problem here is that if I don't look at the block, that whatever is disappearing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the block. I get the information, and one of the nice things you'll get is you'll get your X, Y, and Z kind of axes coordinates, which can be really useful if when you're laying your blocks out and you want to kind of keep things for your projectors and whatnot in line. But more importantly, what I can do is I can hold my shift and press R, and what that's going to do is lock on the overlay. So now when I look away, you can see that this thruster here has this cone. And what this cone represents is the damage that is happening within the grid here. So if we look at, cylinder, if we look here, we can see that it has this red area. This is the area that's going to do the most damage. And as we kind of drift away, we get to this more yellow area, and that's where there's going to be less damage. So basically what will happen is that if you have a block right next to here, so if I grab some blocks here and pop them into place, this block will pretty much explode right away. However, if I have it further away, like right here, so we're getting more into the yellow section here, you can see it will not blow up quite as fast. It'll still blow up, but not as fast. Then we have the caps here. So on the one side here, on the thruster side, we have this kind of blue cap representing the flame, and that's what this is doing. This is representing the damage of the flame, and there is no damage that happens to the thruster itself, which is obvious, so it's got this blue cone here. If we look at the other end, you can see that the blue cone does project into this third block, and that's where the question that I wanted to answer comes up from. Does that blue cone here, or this blue cap, signify that damage is going to happen? So damages others includes the red cylinder. I'm not sure what those mean because, we'll see. That's what we're going to find out. Or is it just a visual thing? If we look on the actual wiki, the wiki says that it is a 3-block damage range. So that is anything that is within 3 blocks. So if I pop these in here, you can see we got 1, 2, 3. If I remove them here, you can see there's that blue cap extending into the space of the 3rd block. Then of course we have it right there, and we have it there, and we have it there. But what happens? How does the damage actually rate? Is it actually 3? And the reason that I'm bringing that up, or that it's a question, that if I run over to the ship over here, you'll notice here that this ship has absolutely no reverse thrust anywhere visible. All of the thrust is for the backup thrust is encased actually in this wing here. So if we come over to this wing here and we remove a few blocks, so we'll pull that one out, we'll pull that one out, and we'll just kind of clear or open this all up. There we go. We'll just open this all up here. You can see that I've got my conveyor line going through here. Then I have these two blocks, which are passenger blocks, but then I have an actual armor block right here using these lovely new rounded blocks. So that is only a 2-block distance. Now the quarter blocks do work, so if we again return to our cylinder, we'll look at that in a second. These blocks aren't taking any damage. You can see that it has got its full grid here. So now the reason this is still a question here is, yes, empirically it says that 2 blocks, the block doesn't take damage. I use the Nano Build and Repair system. Are they repairing this block without me noticing? Or does it just take a long time for these blocks for the block that's in that 3rd block to take any damage? Because how often do you actually use your reverse thrusters? Not that often. All of my other thrust, my forward thrust is exposed here, so I'm not really seeing that. These are the ones that are going to be under much more use. Likewise with my downward facing thrust. The only ones that aren't really visible are my reverse thrust. Sorry, I was just looking to see, there's my side thrust there, so those are exposed, is these reverse thrusters here. So where that brings us to the question of these guys, and again I'm just going to lock that on. Now you did notice there that I am using some blocks directly in front. That's as long as whatever you put in front of it does not exist with this cone. So if you are looking to kind of maybe put a little bit of extra look into your thrusters, let me just turn the overlay off for a quick sec here just so we can see. You can actually either use passage blocks, like for example this guy here. Let me just rotate him around. So I can use this passage block here, or I can use any one of the numerous corridor blocks. They will not take any damage. So you can see I can go through all the ones that have that straight through. So as long as the block has a straight through passage, so this one will not work because it doesn't have a straight through passage, but the round ones will. So if we go to our round ones, you can see we get that straight through passage, and that is because where the damage is actually going to occur, and if we bring up our overlay again and we lock that on, you can see that these blocks aren't actually falling within that cylinder. So they're not going to take any damage. But again, the question arises here. All right, so that's the introduction. That's what I'm going to be looking at. And now let's look at the rig that we're going to be examining. So what I'm going to be looking at is the small hydrogen thruster. So large grid, small hydrogen. Again, I'm just going to turn the overlay off here just because it is a little bit in the way. So we're going to look at the 3 types. So we have the original, so the vanilla one. We have the industrial, and we have the brand new sci-fi, my new favorite that came with the latest DLC. I'm also going to be looking at the differences, and if there is a difference, on our atmospheric. So again, we have the vanilla atmospheric thruster, the sci-fi atmospheric thruster, and as well we have our flatmos, so the flat atmospheric thruster. I'll also be examining the large hydrogen. I'm not going to look at the 3 different ones. We're going to see if there's any difference between these, but all the blocks should be the exact same functionality. We'll test that. So we'll be looking at the large hydrogen, large atmospheric, as well as the large flat atmospheric. Then we will do the same experiments with our small grid, our 3 types of hydrogen, our 3 types of atmo, and as well as our large hydrogen, our large atmo. Now you'll notice that ion thrusters are not present in this display. That's because ion thrusters just don't really work. They only have a 20% efficacy. That's a tough one. Within atmosphere, so we'll actually go up to there where we see that little marker where I have the experiment set up there for ion. So we will be testing all of our main types of thrusters. Okay, so that is what our basic setup is. So what we have here is I have a button. All the thrusters are set to maximum override. So if I push the button here, we just get some lovely, lovely flame. If we go over to here, same thing. We press our button. We get our exhaust going out there. Now, to actually test the damage, so for the LCD here, I am using the Mahind Info LCDs, no programming block. It is a discontinued mod, but it still works quite fine. There is on the workshop an updated version by RNM, and it is more LCD apps, no PB. It's really quite useful. To use it, you just set your LCD to apps, and then you get a list of additional apps that you can then run on your LCDs that'll just give you. And the one I'm using is the damage control. So right now it is telling me that there is no damage on, so there's no damage blocks found. But if I put a functional block down, and I'll just grab a battery here, put that right there, and grab a rifle, and so we can see no damage blocks found. I start shooting up this. All of a sudden, we now have our battery number 3. That is, in fact, the name of this battery, battery number 3, and I've done 1% damage. And I can keep shooting and keep shooting and keep shooting. So I can wear it down. If I, of course, weld it back up. Oops, weld it back up. No damage blocks found. So what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using batteries here to test where that damage is. Okay, so to set this up, all we're going to do here is grab our truss block. And I'm not testing anything besides does block number 3 get affected. So we're going to put a truss block in to each of these. Okay, so I placed a battery 3 blocks away. And again, if we go back to our overlay just to confirm, and we hold our control, hit plus and shift R, we can see that, yep, exactly right there. You can just, let me just hide that. You can just make out right here that blue cap just intersecting with the battery. If we do the same thing here, again, shift R, that'll turn that one off, turn that one on. You can only have one of these at a time. Again, you can see that this one is even maybe slightly shorter, but we can again see that the blue cap is in fact touching. And then of course we look at this one here, and same thing, the blue cap is touching. So all 3 of those will be affected. If we look at our thrusters here, so let's have a look at this guy here. So now we'll notice already we can see a difference here is on the Flatmo, is that the Flatmo really doesn't have the same range. This is not surprising because the Flatmo also doesn't have as much thrust. They're only about 1/3 of the thrust of a regular thruster. So I actually fully expect these guys to be this short. How short is it? Let's find out. So again, let's go grab our truss block here. So we can put a truss block in, right like that. And we can use that as kind of a measuring stick. So whatever is within this one space here will be affected. Whatever is one away probably won't be. So we can test that out. So let's actually move this battery one closer and see what happens there. So I'm not expecting any problems with this one. If we look at the top one here though, so we turn that one on, and we can see that, well, actually, this is something I never realized. I just always assumed it was the same distance. Well, okay, so our hydrogen thruster looks like it has a 2 block damage. This is why we do testing, so we can learn something. However, it looks like these atmospheric thrusters here only have that single block. So if that is the case, let's do a quick adjustment here. Let's test that. Let's test what the actual range is going to be. So again, I'm going to remove these batteries, and then we'll put in our replacements. So we're going to put one here and one here, and we're ready to go on the small ones. We'll come back to the large ones after we finish our tests here. So now what we should start seeing is these batteries will either report damage or they won't report damage. Same thing over here. So let's turn our thrusters on and see what happens. Okay, I am not seeing any damage being reported. Let's grab a programming block and pop that into place. And let's just make sure that the system works. So this will be the control, and those will still be the experimentals. We turn it on, and immediately you can see that that programming block is getting cooked. Quite quickly, in fact. Okay. Let's get that out of there, and we can remove this now. And I'm going to remove that. I'm going to put another one here just right up against the wall. Just like that. Just again to show that only things that are within that cylinder are in fact going to get damaged. So we turn it on. No damage is showing. I'm going to leave these runs here, leave these guys to run. We'll come back to that and see if anything creeps up. All right, so now we're going to come to these guys here. Again, no damage block shown. So this is just showing the exact same thing. So if that block was getting damaged, this one would show. Again, we can demonstrate that here with our rifle. So let's just take a quick shot here. Ba-doom, battery. So you can see battery taking a little hit, and the battery has taken a hit. So we'll always be able to check on the status of our blocks or our batteries as we go along. So again, no battery. Okay, let's turn these guys on. So they're now all going the same thing, 100%. All right, so it's been a minute or two, and I'm still not seeing any damage coming up on any of these blocks here. So let's leave these guys to run, and let's go check out the big guys here. And again, what we're testing is what is the actual damage range from along that cylinder. So again, we'll pull up to it. Got to make sure we can see our display. Shift R. So you can see I've kind of already marked where that should be. So we're going to need to put a battery in its way. We're going to need to extend it out just a little bit here. So again, we'll go to our truss block, pop a truss block into place, go to our battery, and put our battery into place. Do the same thing with the other ones here. So again, let's make sure that we're not making assumptions. So we're going to remeasure. We can see that this one is not... Well, how many we got here? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 range. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like 4.5. And just to make sure, let's build out some blocks here. And yeah, so we got 4.5. So 5. The 5th block should be fine. So that one, yeah, we're going to put it right here. So again, we'll bring up our truss block. Handy dandy little truss block. Grab our battery. And that should definitely be safe. Okay, Flatmo. Same thing. Let's set you up. So again, I'm going to use the Shift R for the overlay. Let's make sure it's active. Shift R. This has got a very thin cylinder. Again, proportionally, it is very short. Let's find out how short it is. So we'll grab one of these, line it up there. So you can notice I can't put a block directly there because it's got a bit of overhang. So it does take a 2-block space, but we'll put that guy there. So that means this one should be also perfectly safe. So we'll grab our truss block, put it there, and we can remove these guys. And away they go. All right, and throw a battery in place. If we look at our block here, no damage. Okay, so let's turn on our big thrusters now. So we're going to turn this button on. That's going to activate that one. No damage blocks found. Let's turn off our overlay, and finally our Flatmo. Okay, that is all our thrusters going, and still so far no block showing any damage. I'm gonna let this run for about 5 minutes. We'll come back and we'll see if there's anything shows up and we have anything to report on them. All right, it's been about 2 minutes and we've got our first battery showing damage. So which one is it? Battery 13. Okay, so who are you? You're battery 6. We can use build vision here. That's battery 5. That's battery 4, so it's not one of these ones. Battery 10. Battery 11. Battery 12. And there we are, battery 13. If we bring out our torch here, we can see that it is in fact lost 1 steel plate. So So let's again bring up our overlay. So we're going to hit the old overlay here. We'll move into range. We'll hit Shift R and we'll see what's happening. And yeah, that is not surprising. So what I'm noticing here is that that cutoff on that yellow line is just touching the battery here. So far we've seen that one steel plate of damage, which is equivalent to that little bit. We're down to 99.2. However, wherever that blue cone, or yeah, the blue cylinder ends, so as long as we don't see any of that yellow penetrating into the block, so far we don't see damage showing up. Okay, well, let's change our point of view. Let's keep our eyes on this one here. And again, we're just going to kind of keep it so that we can watch the damage. And we're going to see, go for another 5 minutes here. And we'll see exactly how fast that battery dies. Look at that, it's already dropped down a little bit as well. So I'm not running a timer or stopwatch or anything like that. I'm just using my recording time as kind of a rough estimate, because really, I don't think this needs to be that accurate. Okay, we'll see you on the other side again. Okay, so it's been about 10-11 minutes, and you can see that the battery has dropped all of 5% on this one thruster. So if you're using any kind of auto repair system, you can obviously have it, what did I count out of here again? You could have it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 7th block, or you could just make sure you've got that 8th block. If we look, none of the other ones are in any danger. So go ahead, put your blocks 2 blocks away. The 3rd space is perfectly safe, as none of these large grid batteries have taken any damage. Okay, so that answers large grid, but what about small grid? Well, we have the very same setup over here for our small grid. So let's have a look at their distances, and let's get some batteries hooked up for these guys. Great, everything's set up, so all we have to do now is turn on the buttons. So again, looks violent. You can actually see flames almost, yeah, you can see flames actually licking through there. Just to make sure I didn't screw it up. So again, we'll turn on the overlay. Hold Shift R, and yeah, that's the damage range. So regardless of what the visual is, so far, no damage. All right, let's turn on our Atmos. Let's turn our large. Let's get our large Atmo. And finally, our large flat Atmo or Flatmo. Okay, so all those guys are now running and no damage reported. Let's come over to this side here, see how we're doing. So still, we're down to 90%. We are now about 20 minutes or 40 minutes into the test. And so far, the only one showing signs of any damage is this battery. None of the others are showing any, taking any damage. Our small grid setup here, and there is no damage. All right, I'm gonna let all this run. Let's run up to the Ion. Let's turn that one on, and we'll see what the results are for that as well. So off to the Ion we go. All right, this is our space testing section. It's just basically an asteroid with the same platform that I've repurposed and added my buttons to. So it is just mounted in there so it doesn't drift away. If we come up to this button here, we can turn all of these guys on. Again, we get our same screen set up, so let's hit it and see. Now, just before we do go, I have set up here this battery in front because the way these cones are being shown here, if we bring this in and we have a look here, you can see that it does go about halfway into this block, but it is touching there. So I expect to see some damage showing up on these guys right away. If we look at all the other ones here, we can see it is the same thing. This one actually is not in the right place. Let me quickly just fix this. All right, I've just moved the whole works back one little bit here. So again, we can see what we're up against here. And let's check the last one here. Again, we have that same setup. All right, our little guy here does not yet have battery on it. So let's put our battery on. So if I put the battery here, I'm going to expect to see the same result there. So if you put that one there, what we should be seeing is this one getting damaged. So first thing I want to do is test the damage, that if it is in that yellow, it is going to take damage. And I should see damage on all of those first batteries here. So let's turn everybody on. Everyone is blasting at full. And there we go. The first one is now reporting in. There comes 58, 59. This one here is 58, so this one is taking damage. It's a little bit behind 59. Who's 59? I think this one over here is probably 59. Whoop, this guy's not on. Let's get him turned on. There we go. All right, that's 62. There's 59, but yeah, here we go. So we can see 56, 58, 59, and 62 are all taking damage, which is exactly what I expected, based on the fact that they were in the yellow area. If I remove these guys now, no damage showing on anything. All right, hydrogen thrusters have still been running down on the planet below us, so let's take a fall and let's see what we get reported back from there. Back to the surface. All right, we're back down on the surface. It has been another little 10 minutes or so, so we've got a total of about 40 minutes of these thrusters being blasted, and you can see that's just the one battery so far is showing the damage, and that is on this one. Now that does bring me up with another question. Is there a difference between this fancy new one here and maybe one of the more traditional ones? So let's set up a quick test for that. I don't want to leave any questions behind. I think we can conclude that these guys are perfectly safe at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6th block here is perfectly safe for the atmospheric. So 5, and only 2 blocks needed for our flat thrusters. That's good to see. We have run out of hydrogen here. Let me just quickly slap on a couple of O2 generators here. There we go. We get those guys blasting away, and no damage on them. But again, we ran out of hydrogen, so we'll let that go. All right, let's swap this guy out, and we'll see if this changes the result. All right, so I've added actually the other 2 types of thrusters. That is the industrial large hydrogen thruster, and then of course the regular vanilla large hydrogen. And you know, just to make sure that my assumptions aren't going to break things, again, we can see that the yellow line, now the industrial is 1 block longer, so I've actually set it back a little bit here. So I'm piping into the back of this one, so it is a little bit longer. These guys here are 3 blocks long. He is 4 blocks long. But so I just made sure to end up the nozzles, the business end, lined up there. And we can see that it's coming out the same distance. Likewise for this one here, I've also set it up, again, just to make sure we're not using any assumptions. All right, so I'm going to use Build Vision here. This is again a different mod where I can take the settings from here. So hitting Insert will copy all, select all the settings for this thruster. Page Up will copy that to a clipboard, so that when I look at another one and I hold down my Control key, so to bring up Build Vision, Control middle mouse wheel down or middle mouse wheel up. You can get 2 different types, a radial menu. I'm not a big fan of this one. Or you can go down and you can get this more kind of traditional one here. Again, Insert to select all of the options, Page Up to copy that, right click to close, hold down the Control key, and Page Down to paste those settings so that thruster is now blasting. And again, from a distance here, I can even do it and Page Down, so I have now those thrusters blasting. So again, looking at my recording time, we've added about another 5 minutes. And yeah, so again, one of the new batteries is already showing damage. So That means we can have a modicum of damage at this level, but it looks like we want to keep more towards this side of things, and we can just mark that here with one of these, that distance away as opposed to that distance. And that is it. That kind of answers all of those questions. These guys nodding. And as long as we've got that 2 block, the big question where the conversation started from, what brought me to this point, was is it 2 blocks or 3 blocks? And we can see that it is in fact only 2 blocks needed. As long as you've left this open, you're good. Large thrusters, what we need is we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the 8th one is fact. Really, Build Info is a great mod. It's one of the quality of life mods that is in every one of my playthroughs. Build Vision, same thing, but just having these little graphical representations to show me that this would be taking damage. And I can see that as long as that blue cap or any part of that yellow is touching the block, it's going to take damage. Whereas over here with these guys, and we bring it up, we can see that as long as the yellow is outside the block, no damage will be taken. And that goes for all of our different thrusters. Which one hasn't taken damage yet? So one of the new batteries hasn't. Let's have a look at this one to see if there is a difference again. So again, we'll just hit that there. If we have a look here, yeah, I expect this battery will be taking damage shortly. It just hasn't caught up yet. There it goes. Oh, perfectly right on cue. Just as I say that, there we go. So yes, there is a little bit of difference between these guys. These two, there's only a couple of seconds difference between when I turned them on. But you can see that it did take a little bit longer before that gets in there. Let's turn our overlays, Control plus, Control plus, Control plus. So again, it's the equals plus sign beside your backspace key, and we can hide that and hide all that. So again, we got the different flames. These are my favorite thrusters to use. What else can I say about this? And the conclusion is that, yeah, where it matters, use the Build Info, 2 blocks, a single block, and 8 blocks, the 5th block, and the 3rd block, and that will get your damage or protect your grids. Likewise here, we can go 2 blocks, no damages, 1 block in our atmospherics, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on our large, hydrogen, 5 on our large, oxygen, and 2, which is pretty much almost mirroring what's going on over there. And the ions are also in that safe range. So there we go. Now we know what the answer to that question is. If there's any other questions in Space Engineers that you been burning in your mind and you want me to maybe take a look at and answer for you, I'm happy to do the research. Let me know. We'll add it to and bring it into the testing round. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.